everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Raising the Curtain, a Bloomington Normal Theater podcast with Ashleigh. Today, I am very excited for this interview because I have a little bit of a personal connection to it. But today, I am interviewing Cory Gaff and Jeff Burke of Community Players Theater's upcoming production of James and the Giant Peach. How we doing today, folks?
Good.
Doing well.
Perfect. Cory, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about who you are, how you got involved with theater, community players, and why this show.
I'm Cory Gaff. I've been doing theater for a while, probably since first or second grade.
Love that.
I started with Parks and Rec, children's theater. I did like Seussical and Addams Family, and then I took a break. And I got into community players when they did Elf. And there was a call for kids to play elves, and that was the first audition that I had to prepare a song and go, and I went with all my friends, and it was fun. I liked it.
And that's where Cory met me.
Yeah.
Why did you want to audition for James and the Giant Peach?
It was actually those two. I was debating between doing my school's play and doing James, and I was kind of back and forth, but by the time James auditions had come up, I had really cemented I want to do James, because I was like, no matter what my school play does, I would rather do a fun, lighthearted children's play instead of maybe the drama that whatever my school chooses. And I also grew up on Roald Dahl, and I really enjoy all of the stories and their goofiness.
Fantastic. Jeffrey, let's throw it on over to you.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Who are you? How'd you get involved with theater, community players, and why James and the Giant Peach?
Okay, so I'm Jeff Burke. The way I got into theater is a little bit weird, actually.
It sure is.
So just in general, I hated being on stage when I was in high school. I didn't like going on for music or anything like that. Even for jazz band, I got really nervous to go on stage. So the very first time I ever did it was in, we were doing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at our
Classic.
school. Yeah, for senior year. And naive little me thought I could get Joseph. And so I went to go audition for it and didn't get it at all. I made callbacks, so which is kind of cool. I've never done theater before. I've never done singing before. Never considered myself a singer when I was in high school. And I wound up just doing the tip for that one. But my buddy John, later on in the year, we had a talent show. And he was very insistent that I go on stage with him because he was too scared to do it by himself.
Fair.
So he was like, we're going to do Cellophane and we're going to make it into a duet. And I was like, I don't know.
I love this already.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't know, man. I don't sing. I'm not really much of a performer. I don't like being on stage. He's like, come on. It's our senior year. It's our last chance we'll have to do this. And I was like, all right, you're right. I'll go and I'll give it a shot. And at that time I was like, I may as well just try everything I can. And so we had the auditions and we wound up making it. And I got a lot of positive feedback from it, and so did he as well. And it was kind of like, oh, maybe that's a little bit more fun than I thought. And so then I was like, all right, I'll continue trying this. And then so the first show I ever did was Spamalot at the community theater that we had there. Didn't really, I got served a beer, nothing super big, but it was the first time I actually got to be on stage and do a full show.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. So that's kind of how I started overall with it. Community players, however, I've been here for about 8 years, and I really kicked myself in the butt for not trying to do anything sooner. It was only, last year that Jesus Christ Superstar happened?
2022. So 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Oh my gosh. I wasn't really sure if I'd be able to make the time commitment for that show. And so I also, I volunteered to do an understudy for the role of Caiaphas, since there was a tough role to kind of fill in. And so I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. And I was still nervous because I didn't really love my voice at that point either at the time. I'm a little self-conscious about it. And so, turns out closing weekend, our Caiaphas got COVID and I had to jump on in. Luckily it was a show I already knew the music for, so it was a pretty easy transition. But everyone was super kind, super accepting. Everyone was really friendly. They were helping me out, learn everything that I needed to for that last performance. And it just really kind of solidified me wanting to continue to do plays. So I've done a couple of musicals just throughout my life in general, but I've never done a stage play before. I've never just done like a straight up play, and I've really been enjoying it a lot more, and I figured that I'd try and branch out and give myself a new challenge. And there are not a lot of plays that I know, but I did know the movie James and the Giant Peach, and I absolutely loved that movie. It was something I grew up with as a kid. Anytime it was on TV, I was always watching it. That along with like Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. What's the other one that it was? It's the same person who did the show. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's the one.
Something with a boy in chocolate.
Something crazy. And so I've always just loved those. I've loved those films my whole life, and I just love stop motion in general. And coincidentally, growing up watching it, Centipede scared me to death.
I mean, a giant bug would just frighten anyone to death, I feel like.
I was terrified, but Grasshopper was ironically my favorite character from the movie the whole time. And so I figured I'd just go on audition and see what happens.
And here we are. And we should say, Cory is playing James, and Jeff is playing the Grasshopper. I don't think we actually said that. Cory, let me flip it over to you. Have you ever played a role this, title character before?
Not at all. This is very new to me. I was in SpongeBob this summer, and I played Patrick, and that was the most lines I think I'd ever had. And I was really excited to get this role because it's a really cool experience to, try to learn all of these lines. Mm-hmm. And this is very new, but it's been really fun, and I very much enjoyed it.
Very cool. Would you say that learning the lines has been the hardest part, or what's been the biggest challenge for you?
Honestly, the biggest challenge has been not breaking on stage because everyone here is really funny. I think that's the thing I've improved on the most is keeping character, and especially because I have to focus on doing the accent and stuff. And the lines for me were the second hardest, I think, because I read through the script every day so I could make sure I'm familiar with it, and they kind of came easier than usual, which was surprising to me because I'm usually very bad at memorizing stuff.
I mean, this script too, and probably with your music background, there is kind of a rhythmic quality to this script, so that might have also helped with it as well. At least I think. Jeff, what's been the most challenging part for you, other than working with me, of course?
That is challenging. That's a tough question, honestly. I think, honestly, the toughest thing for me was just having the confidence to think that I could do it, quite frankly. Again, this is probably the biggest role that I've had before on a stage play. The memorization definitely wasn't easy, but there was a lot of, like you said, it has a little bit of a rhythmic element. There's a couple of parts that do rhyme a little bit, so it makes it a little bit easier to kind of remember certain cues and whatnot. But I guess probably maintaining the accent and kind of maintaining a character that I've never really typically played before on stage. I'm not used to playing someone so kind and gentle on the stage.
Kind, gentle, demure.
Yes. So that's been the hardest. Old. The lines were tricky though. Usually, again, most of the plays or musicals I've done before were rock operas, so it's sung the whole way through. That's much easier to memorize stuff with that. Poppins was the first kind of tricky line memorization I had. So I guess just going from show to show is just continuing what I was doing. I always record myself saying everyone else's lines and not mine, so that way I have a way to kind of go back and play it. So that helped a lot with it as well. But definitely that. Oh, and the legs.
The legs.
That was tricky. That was tricky to navigate the stage, or just navigating the space that we have on the stage as is. I'm not.
You've got a whole extra set of appendages.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest challenge that I had with it.
Good deal. I'm going to ask this question to both of you. Cory, I want you to answer first, just so we can kind of go back and forth here. But James and the Giant Peach was done at Community Players in 1994, I think was the last time it was done. Why do you think it's good that Players does shows that gear more towards kids in a younger generation like yours?
Well, I personally, as a younger person, this has really helped me like build at least the amount of shows I've done and the confidence in auditioning in shows. Because when Elf was my first thing here, I was like, oh, they need kids here? Like this, I thought this was like an adult-only place. And I think it's really great to have kids because it helps them kind of be introduced to the theater world. Because my middle school didn't have a drama program until I was in 8th grade. Elementary school had like 1 or 2 tiny little things. It was really only like out of school classes that you could go experience this, and I like that there's some place where you can do that at a young age. It's great.
Awesome. What about you, Jeff? How do you think it's pivotal to, make sure kids have a involvement here at Community Players?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of reasons for why it's very important, and one being, with a show like this, you're able to integrate, you're able to pull in a lot of new people as we have for the show.
13. New people.
A lot of new people, I feel like, for a show, and but also having some older people here as well to kind of integrate newer people in. So I think it just gives that kind of dynamic of having some like established older people helping kids coming here get used to being on stage, get used to acting. Builds the community, obviously, and not all kids necessarily have access to going to a theater. So doing shows like this that allow to bring more of them in, I just think is really important for just anyone who might not even realize they like it yet. There's been a couple of people that are here that haven't done it in 30 years that wound up
or at all.
Yeah. Like that are just finding out how much they really love being here, and it's just a really important experience for a lot of them.
How do you think patrons are going to react to the show, especially because you and me are both from the same, 90s generation when the movie came out, and how pivotal those stop motion claymation movies were. How do you think audiences are going to react to it?
Honestly, I think they're going to love it. I think it's going to jog a lot of memories because there was a lot of things about the movie that I certainly forgot before coming to do this. So I think it's going to bring some people back. I think it's going to honestly even give excuses for parents to show their kids this movie because there might be there might be like a lot of little kids coming to see a show that they don't even know what the movie is yet, and so it might just inspire that. And I don't know. I think it'll just bring back a lot of like really fun memories for people. Show
all the nostalgia.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly has been a huge nostalgia kick for myself doing this whole thing. So
love that.
Yeah.
Cory, had you seen the movie before you auditioned?
Well, I saw it as a very young child, so I don't remember a lot. I just remember the feeling of uneasiness that I got while watching it, and I haven't watched it since. And I always meant to. The second I got in, I was like, oh, okay, I need to watch the movie. And I haven't yet, and I am planning to before the show run ends. But yeah, I read the book. I was a big book nerd in elementary school, so I read those books. I read like Shel Silverstein and stuff. And so I also remember reading those, and that's kind of where my baseline knowledge of this play came from.
What do you think the theme? I don't like to ask that question. What do you think the theme is? But why do you think James is such a iconic show, and like what can people take away from it?
I mean, I think it's iconic just because it's just so weird, and I've never really seen anything like it. Like, trying to describe it to someone is really difficult if they have no prior knowledge of it, because it's just so unique. And I think this is just a really, like, I've never done anything with, like, this kind of set, and it's just very, I really do enjoy, like, the ideas of it, like with I remember you mentioning like the children should be seen, not heard, and how that kind of like goes away from that, and I really do like that because I think it's very inspiring, and I do I like the ideas, and I just think it's such a fun, like, interesting play, and you can't really like know what it's supposed to be like describing it until you see it.
Do you think James has the ability to deliver that sort of message to people?
I think so. I think the show really portrays how important it is, one, to show kindness, to people, because, for instance, James is not in the most friendly environment when it
He's
starts.
not.
And I think Cory specifically does a really good job of portraying the emotion of like, oh, I can receive kindness. These things are actually very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I was going to add on to that, like what you said, is a lot of people will disregard what younger people say in general. Not giving them the time of day because they're like, oh, you're younger and you don't know any better. And recently, even just like taking on a couple more like younger students, I'm realizing like how much children really do know. Like there may be some like intricacies that they haven't experienced yet, but younger people know a lot more than we think they do, and we don't give them the credit they necessarily deserve or the ear that they deserve.
So we've kind of touched a little bit on James's story, but Cory, can you just kind of give us a little, who is James?
Well, James, he starts off like very happy. He was 4 and his parents were awesome, and he lived in this beautiful house beside the sea, and there was children to play with. And then his parents tragically pass away in a rhinoceros accident. I don't know how else to describe that.
That's the best way we can describe it.
And he gets sent off to live with his aunts, who are, for lack of a better word, abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of starts to realize that not everything's wonderful and great and happy all the time. And I feel like, and then it like time cuts, and I feel like he kind of starts to just take it a little bit, and he starts to kind of like lose hope in that there's good people, or at least that's how I take it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the old man and the bugs, and he kind of starts to find some hope and kindness of other people, and that people will care about what he says and listen to him and be nice.
Yeah. Jeff, can you talk a little bit about the old green grasshopper and who he is and what his relationship with James is?
Yeah, so, the old green grasshopper, he's a very, very gentle kind of soul overall. The way I kind of view him is he's kind of almost guiding James through this journey of his, showing that it's not, he doesn't, I find the grasshopper interesting because he doesn't really try and talk like he knows everything that's going on, unless there's like a little joke that I think about that at some point. But like, he's not trying super hard to impress everybody or tell people how to go about their days. And he's giving James the time of day to say what he needs to say, listen to what he has to say as well. It's hard to really think of the backstory of a grasshopper, but I do think I do find it though it's interesting as well though, because he's an older soul, he's a grasshopper that plays an instrument, and grasshoppers are not necessarily musical bugs at the same time. So I do think that there's a lot to be said about that if you want to look in further to what that is. But it's a tough one though. He's just kind of he's there to kind of keep everyone's heads on. He's trying to make sure everyone's happy, trying to get through these tragic kind of moments with keeping a level head. And I think that's an important role that you wouldn't always necessarily see in a character who's supposed to be described as very old or whatever may be.
So we're going to kind of delve into a little bit of fun stuff here really quick. You guys have been doing great along with the rest of the cast in terms of keeping elements of the show secret, but I know you both almost said something about the set. I mean, you caught yourselves, which is fine. Cory, do you want to talk a little bit about what the set looks like?
Well, my favorite part of the set is the peach. I really, when we first got it, it was just like a circle platform on the ground, and now it's like this giant playground, and it's so fun because we get to just kind of do whatever we want on it, and it doesn't look like a lot of room, but I feel like we have figured it out where we can space it right. And it's just like my favorite part because it's just so fun. It's just a little playground for like mostly adults, but for me too. And
yeah, it is very Jungle Jimmy.
Yes.
So
yeah.
And it does some cool tricks, but we'll save that one for later. Jeff, you want to talk about the other set piece?
Book.
Yes. He's like, what other set piece?
yes. That honestly, that is my favorite part of this. Just because
you have like the most interaction with the book.
Yeah, and so that's what I really do like. What I appreciate both about James and the Grasshopper in the show is kind of that layer of stepping on back into the story.
They act as, they're in the story, but they're also telling the story at the same time.
Yes. And so, I get to interact with it kind of like moving along the story, and the artwork in it is absolutely phenomenal, I have to say. Ben did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
But it's just really cool. I like the way that it kind of works, because there's a couple little elements of the show that when you do come to see it, you will kind of see it being taken from a storybook, but it's a unique way to tell the story. I think it's because a Grasshopper, at least the way that we have it on the stage, is as the story progresses, I'm flipping through the pages, and there's a bunch of different artworks.
You can say that.
There's a bunch of different artworks that are just kind of being portrayed throughout it, and it's some nice little aesthetic that comes with the set, because one thing I do appreciate, especially about your shows, is that it's not always about having the biggest, most grandest set that there is. I'm a big proprietor of theater of the mind, especially like as within D&D as well. And I do it for fun. So I think there's some really cool elements that are done between the way that the Peach is built and the way that the book is telling the story. It's just not something I've necessarily seen on stage myself personally.
So Ashleigh seems to have a very my brain tends to think in scaffolding and doors, because the last show I did was scaffolding and doors. This one, scaffolding and doors. But yeah, I'm on the same boat with you, especially going to a college that was a black box that you turned into a proscenium. You turned it into a thrust. We had a lot of, variety with it. And I also hate scene changes. I think they really distract from a story. So the more simple you can make it. And I think we were able to achieve a lot of that with the book. Obviously, we had a very short rehearsal process for this show. 21 days. And only 3 full weekends to build a set. And when you do a show called James and the Giant Peach, guess what? There has to be a giant peach that fits 5 full-grown humans and a 15-year-old. So that was definitely a challenge, but I do think those 2 pivotal set pieces and the few other accents that we have really are going to help tell the story. So you guys have a mic check you have to get to, so I'm going to start to wrap this up. Corey goes, oh yeah. So you guys have the mic check, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Jeff, how can people get tickets?
They can go to the Community Players website and order their tickets online, or they can also call the box office to order tickets ahead of time as well, or you can just come right on in as well. But I recommend doing ahead of time just in case there are not seats available. You can also pick them as well, so that's going to be a really, really important thing.
So performances for the show are going to be with the Pay What You Can preview night that Community Players is known for, which will be tonight, August 29th, with opening night Friday the 30th, and then Saturday the 31st at 7:30, with a 2:30 p.m. matinee on Sunday, September 1st. There was a lot of S's in that sentence. And then they will reopen again on Friday the 6th, Saturday the 7th, and then a closing performance again at 2:30 on the 8th of September. So one final thing. What's your favorite line in the show?
My favorite line is Centipede's line, where it's like, he's blind, James. He can't see how splendid I look. That makes me laugh every time. It's so silly.
I love that. Jeff, what's your favorite line in the show?
How can I see if I'm blind, James?
My favorite line in the show. Wow.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you both so much. I think the show is going to be brilliant, but again, I'm a little biased on it here. Anything you guys want to conclude? I'll take that as a no. Come see James and the Giant Peach at Community Players and see all the fun that we've been having.